Hi, everybody. Before we get started, I want to take the time to thank you for everyone who has been listening to the Wanted Pod. Please keep rating and reviewing and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or SoundCloud and tell a friend who might benefit from listening. It's all about word of mouth here. You've been doing a great job so far, so keep adding us to your Instagram story. Shout us out on Twitch. Everything helps. Help us spread the word about the importance of talking about mental health by donating to our Patreon campaign, patreon.com/We Are No Alamo. Help us keep this podcast going. And since you've been listening, you know sometimes we joke about suicide and death and other difficult mental health issues. But we want you to know that we don't really take it lightly, and we are concerned for you and the rest of our listener base. We really care about your well-being. So if you're having suicidal thoughts or plan, just stop listening to this podcast. Call 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-TALK, or text HOME, HOME, to 741-741. That's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and they provide 24/7 support to people in crisis situation. So remember, this podcast is about opening up the conversation, and sometimes it's easier to talk about hard stuff when there's a little laughter involved. But remember, we want you to stay with us, and you're not alone because we are no Alamo. So again, welcome to the podcast. We are here today with Donnie. Hey, Donnie.
Hey, everyone.
And Matthew.
Why, hello.
He is going to be a recurring co-host with us. How do you feel about that?
I'm not quite sure yet.
Are you excited?
I don't think it's sunk in.
You're going to feel great.
You're going to feel great.
Welcome.
I'll take your guys' word for it.
Right.
I'll put trust in y'all.
Well, we trust you. You're a good guy. So, social media shout out today is to Salvador E. He actually works on the Beto campaign. Number one, thanks for listening and sending in your questions, Salvador. And if anyone has any other topics that they would like discussed on this podcast, keep emailing wearenoalamo@gmail.com. Like I said, Salvador works on Beto O'Rourke's campaign, and I want to give a shout out to voting. It's voter registration time, everybody. Have y'all registered to vote?
I've never missed an election since I was 18.
Nope. Okay. I have to register to vote in Austin.
I haven't voted since the Bush administration.
Oh my.
Since the Obama administration.
How
Clinton.
dare you?
How dare you!
How dare I? I was going to say, how dare me, and that was wrong. From a actual English language. That was wrong. How dare me?
How dare you! But I wanted to say a little bit about Beto's campaign because obviously I'm going to.
Can you explain a little bit about Beto? What's Beto about?
Okay, he is the senator guy running against Mr.
He's running for
Cruz.
senator. He's running for senator against Ted Cruz here in
Yes.
Texas.
Thank you.
He is already, I think, a congressman or a member of the House of Representatives.
Yeah. And recently he opened up a mental health institution for veterans. So 7,000 veterans are now getting mental health care in El Paso. So mental health is a part of his initiative, which is why I really appreciate Salvador emailing us. So he says, I was thinking about some conversational topics for your podcast. There are two. Number one, you guys, is there a line between depression and self-pity? And if so, is it clearer or more vague than we think? What do you think? Depression and self-pity, how do you even see a difference?
You speak to a professional about that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Call me.
Yeah.
Call me up on the line, Sal.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. Don't call me. I won't have an answer.
1-800, I'm your guy.
I'm your
No,
guy.
well, how would you even define, self-pity?
Okay, let's think about 13 reasons why. You know,
Oh, my.
Did y'all ever see that? It's about that teenager who completes
Oh.
suicide.
That was a big deal. Huh?
And yeah, I remember reading that book when I was in high school, and I read it in one sitting, and I remember thinking, wow, that girl was in an extremely dark place, and she's pulling people down with her. So it was more like, I like this question because it was a push and pull between her depression and suicidal ideation and self-pity on her for people bullying her. So I think that line was a little raunchy for that. I think it was more for entertainment purposes. From someone who has depression, I'm not looking for self-pity, but I do have the tools that I need because I've sought psychiatric care. So from you guys, have you ever experienced self-pity and the ruse of depression?
Well, yeah, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive, and I don't think they're necessarily self-pity. I think what you would say for somebody who might not have a mental illness, but who's the one to say that you don't or don't, besides a professional.
Exactly.
My personal opinion. But yeah, so I've been had a pity party or two in my life. Mm-hmm. Things didn't go my way. I'm really angry. which was different than.
Smallest violin playing for you.
I know,
Yeah.
right? I love that.
Oh my god, he
I
does
love
that
it.
to
It's
me
great.
all the time.
Hmm?
Smallest violin.
Playing the world's longest. Wait.
For people listening to this,
World's
we're
longest
playing
violin.
Yep.
violins between our fingers.
Yep.
Like
Yeah,
Curtis.
for all you listeners out there, you're missing a real delicate
Yep.
thing happening.
Yep. My sister did that to me my whole life, and so did my mom and dad. So that's what I grew up with.
I love it. Okay, so that leads up to the next question. Is there an appropriate behavior or remedy to those who suffer from depression? How do you go about like figuring it out in a person before you want to step in or should?
So you're talking about like if I have a friend?
Yeah.
Oh well, like if you know somebody's doing things that are different than normal and acting differently. I mean, I don't know
You know
necessarily.
about signs of depression.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
what?
sleeping a lot, not wanting to go out, not wanting to hang out. When you're
Taco Bell.
no, not Taco Bell. I love me some Taco
we're
Bell.
not
I live
into
next door to a Taco Bell. I love you, Taco Bell.
I love you too,
They were hiring, and I really thought I could get free Taco Bell for life. But no, like some of the symptoms are like pulling away from things that you once loved,
Yep.
right? And I know,
Definitely sleeping. I felt like I was.
Yeah.
When I was depressed, I was sleeping
Yep.
more, and I was actually opposite. Some people actually stop eating. I was eating more.
Yep.
I'm the opposite. I stopped eating, and that's when
Yeah.
I realized, like, past a certain point.
Yeah.
And I think you experienced that too. You don't mind talking
It
about,
depends,
like, weight
yeah.
gain and depression.
Yeah, so like I actually gain weight too a lot of times, depending on where it's at. Like, yeah, I'll do the same thing. I'll stress eat all day long.
Where the food's at or where your depression's at?
Both. I mean, I can always eat, but like, yeah, when I'm depressed, I either don't eat or I eat way too much. There's no in between.
Cool. So are y'all ready for Wanna Weigh In? We got a two-parter today.
What? Well,
Just want to end.
Wanna In, Wanna Weigh In. So
Wanna.
they both involve mandated requirements for people to have training and resources in mental health. So we're going to start the weigh-in with mental health in the classroom. I'm going to read this a little bit. So in Albany, New York State, starting in this September coming, before, you know what I'm talking about. It's October, last month was September.
Inception.
But for about 50% of the population, the onset of mental health issues, anxiety, depression, are coming up at age 14. Glenn Liebman from the New York State of Mental Health Association said. So when they start to seek services, could be up to age 24, and they're wanting to eliminate that gap from when symptoms start forming and like give these kids the tools they need. So the article, shout out to News 10 in Albany, they are not wanting teachers to be psychiatrists. They are not looking for them to be any clinicians or like that. But in the curriculum, you can embed mental health services into counseling or in other departments, like English classes. You can look into mental health studies or research, just being open up an awareness for kids, because they said people are afraid to talk about mental health because there is a stigma attached to it, and that's unfortunate. So the more we talk about it, the more we can change the language and make it more positive, like we call mental illness MI, or committing suicide, completing suicide. However, starting this curriculum from kindergarten into high school, when sexual education isn't even started until like what, 4th, 6th grade or whatever?
third grade.
So 3rd grade?
Depends on the state.
Yeah.
It was.
Terrible joke on my part.
I didn't say anything. I was just gonna give it to you. But this question is more for you. Like we talked about it a little bit. You have a brand new baby daughter, and she's 2 months old.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? This mandated health care, mental health.
What do I think about it? Oh, I mean, I feel like it's a good thing because it kind of puts a target, a bullseye on depression finally as being something that should be looked at and mandated, something that should be taken more seriously as before.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at depression from a timeline, we've come a long way from the 1950s to now. Not to jump into my past, but I actually kind of dealing with this topic. When I was younger, I used to go to I'm a photographer on the side, so I used to go to like a lot of abandoned buildings and a lot of facilities that weren't in use anymore. And one of them was actually in Letchworth, New Jersey. right across.
You mean
That's
lecture?
That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah. And
Can you say that?
and
Can you even say that?
yeah, and so with going there, it was actually Geraldo Rivera shut it down in the 70s, late 70s. And in the comments, you guys can correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was the late 70s, early 80s.
Please do, because he thought Twitter and Facebook were started like 20 years ago.
That's
I
true,
think.
I did. So,
I love it.
yeah, tweet me if you want. So I,
What is it, at Donnie?
so going there, I found out more information about, and it was actually a place that in the 50s, parents would send their kids to with any kind of problems because they were so embarrassed
To deal with
dealing
it.
with it. So if you had a kid that was born with, any kind of like, being mentally something going on or a deformity or what have you, they were sending them there just out of pure embarrassment. And this was the 50s. And now I feel like depression is not in the spotlight of being something to be embarrassed about anymore because you have huge celebrities coming out talking about it to little people that don't,
And
Michael Phelps.
yeah, and Kevin. Whatever.
Michael Phelps
Michael Phelps.
is a huge promoter of cannabis in the depression
Yep.
industry in the
So am
medicinal
I.
side. Yeah, I mean that's something to
So
look
is
at too.
Beto O'Rourke.
I've been recently using CBD oil, which is a derivative of cannabis. It's
It's a cannabinoid.
Yeah, and it's
Cannabinoid.
been
Check.
fantastic. I highly recommend it to anybody who don't always just go for like the drugs that the doctors are gonna pitch you.
Yeah.
Kind of look at like natural alternatives because CBD oil for me has been.
How do you use it?
I have psoriasis,
Okay.
so
Mhm.
I put it on my psoriasis and it gets rid of it completely.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a nature's way of curing something.
Stop using coconut oil, everybody. It's bad for you. CBD
No,
oil
but
is where it's at.
actually, doctors will prescribe a lot of steroid creams, a lot of things that like just mess with your skin.
Yeah.
WD-40.
Yeah,
I've heard of that actually.
Yeah,
Like for
yeah.
psoriasis, use WD-40.
Yeah,
My
it's
best friend
crazy.
has it, and that's what he used.
And
dangerous.
CBD oil, I put it on and it's gone.
That's incredible.
So it's like nature always had an answer.
So
To
adalimumab, whatever I see on the TV lately, talking about psoriasis.
I mean, there's
treatment.
people. There's different like there's people that suffer with it really bad. There's people that have
Yep.
they have to take like biologics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like Humira and all this stuff, but that stuff is still kind of new. So
Yeah.
it's been known to cause like lymphomas and kind of because you're kind of going in there and messing
Right.
with your immune system, and your immune system is not something
Yeah.
that is one, contrary to popular belief. It's actually a machine that has multiple parts. And going in there and stopping some of these parts to help something might be harming something else.
Exactly.
So doctors are still trying to. But
Figure
again,
it out.
CBD oil has. If you have psoriasis and you listen to this podcast, I highly recommend it. It's got just.
Or even for
super easy-
self-soothing like practice. I mean, CBD oil is
The drops under the tongue, fantastic,
it's legal. So
fantastic. Like I
it's
did.
an
I
anxiety
did,
reducer.
I did the drops for about 2-3 weeks. I felt amazing, and it was like just 5 drops under the tongue, and it was like super just.
Yeah.
I felt like great, energetic, all this stuff. So it really is something, and it's like I know that the FDA are trying to FTC. The FDA are trying to get their
ESPN.
hands on
ESPN?
CBD oil because they want to put it in, but they're gonna ruin it. You know?
I know. Well, I love this.
Hopefully not.
Let's get back to the school situation though,
Yeah,
because
sorry, I
drugs
wasn't
still aren't allowed on school campuses. We're not that
Well,
progressive.
you were asking
people.
about my daughter.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for her future. I think that she's lucky enough to say that she lives in a future where if she does have something partially due to what I've had in the past,
Yeah.
she'll be okay, which makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was younger, 15, 16 years old, and I felt weird, I grew up in the 90s. So, like, it was different, you know?
Yeah.
It's so different.
The only thing you do is listen to Nirvana and be like, wow.
What?
And then Kurt Cobain.
And then Kurt Cobain. did
Come
I
on.
know what happened with that.
Yeah, but yeah,
R.I.P. Kurt.
I agree with it. I think it's great.
Cool. I mean, so I really want to hear a little bit about your side.
I'm not going to have any complaints with. If we're doing sex ed in 3rd, 4th grade, depends on the state. Every state's different when they do it. Texas is probably like never. But most of the states.
Things that you're not progressive on. But
Yep.
yes, sex ed is kind of, at least it's there.
Yep. I mean, if we're doing sex ed in school, I don't see why we don't. We're teaching health. We should be teaching about mental health as well. So I don't understand
Because if you're talking about
yeah,
like
it makes like it's perfect. It's
yeah,
like
your physiology and like your health in general. I mean,
Yeah.
you could integrate it into a kinesiology class, like mental health is part of your brain.
I think the only problem, not a problem with this, I also think it depends on the school. Like I went to schools that were, we talked about mental health. Like I remember talking about like suicide when I was a freshman in high school. Like it's not something that doesn't happen. If you have these thoughts, it is normal. There's people to talk to. Like I remember having those conversations at that age.
Yeah.
So when I hear this, I'm like, well, duh. But then again, I grew up in like my school was my school. Not every school in the country is the same. So henceforth, now this is like everybody should be doing something, which I like. I
Yeah.
mean,
I like
mental health
to-
shouldn't be a scary topic.
It really shouldn't. And like decreasing the negative stigma, if that can start at a young age, I am completely on board. But there's been a 30% increase in suicide rates since 2000. That's not fake news. That statistic was conducted by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So mostly I agree with that. However, like we talked about before with those questions, if we give kids this vocabulary, this language, this new taxonomy to talk about mental health at such a young age. Like I remember in 6th grade going to sex ed and we weren't allowed to say testicles and we were 6th grade, so we go to the playground and we're like, testicles. You know what I mean? So there's like I want to play devil's advocate here. Like offering the tools necessary for kids to succeed, to open up that language. When I've been talking to people from ages 16 to 60 and the language, the stories are all the same. No one knows what I'm going through, so why should I even try? No one understands. I feel alone. I hear that all the time from older people. However, young kids are going through all of these changes and, puberty and stuff. And how do we communicate to kids like this isn't a self-pity thing? This is for actual like depression and anxiety.
My health class was taught by my gym teacher.
See, there you
Put that
go.
into perspective. Like Coach Pasquello, shout out to you, dude, because you showed me what it means to have testicles.
Yay!
That's an awkward
Coaches
thing to
always
say
do
on
that.
a podcast, right?
That's-
It is very odd, but
Well, I said
understandable.
testicles. We should do a testicles word count. Like, testicles.
You didn't actually show me my testicle. I'm gonna just cut
I think
it
we're
off
at
right
5.
Let's just end that conversation.
I got in trouble. Anyway, so shout out to Coach. He taught you stuff.
No,
So-
what I mean is that he didn't know shit, and it was like, why is he teaching this class? He's not certified to be doing this, but he's like, hey guys, there's a condom
Yeah.
in the jar. Take it out. If you're thinking about doing anything, don't make the same mistake I did. I got stuck
Right.
with 3 kids, and I'm teaching this shitty job.
What is Mean
It's
Girls?
like, okay, dude, we get it. Fine.
Don't have sex. You will get an STD and you will die. She doesn't even go here. I have a lot of feelings.
The feels.
All the feels. So, all right. Next one weigh in. So, mental health training and requirements for officers. This is something that we've talked about before on the show. Shout out to Will. He was on a previous podcast. He's an officer. Over the weekend,
Can I give a shout out quickly?
Shout out, man.
If you guys are interested, I have a new series launching on YouTube.
Oh my God, do it.
It's called We Are in the Blue. And
Shameless
it's,
plug.
Basically,
Shameless plug, dude.
It's basically I'm filming the real life stories of police officers in Texas, Leander to be specific. They're allowing me to ride in the cars and kind of go through a day and what the officers do.
That's pretty cool.
That is
So
really
I'm gonna be
cool.
launching it pretty soon. Yeah, it's
If
gonna be
you
awesome.
experience any mental health things in those ride-alongs,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Bring
for
it
sure.
back here,
That's a
but-
shameless plug, but check it out. Go.
it's a good plug.
I'm done.
It's shameless.
Go to.
Shameless.
So what I was saying, I'm actually glad
Coming
you
soon
guys
to a
watched
theater,
that.
not to a theater. I wish.
YouTube channel.
YouTube.
So I know it's different from the mental health requirements in schools, but it could be just as effective for people in other situations. So over the weekend, I went to a baby shower, and of course my family is a trigger just because they cause me anxiety. I'm sure everyone here can, catch the feels on that. But it did induce an anxiety attack on the way home from the baby shower. And I felt like I took a step back from all the work that I've been doing. In therapy and in dialectical behavioral therapy, we work on these things called skills before pills. because I am prescribed Xanax. And of course, we all know how addictive benzos are to people. And shout out to Christian Whalen and Ellis Whalen, my sisters who work in the mental health field. Y'all understand. So skills before pills. But I was in a situation where I was unable to use my skills necessary. So I had to take the Xanax, and I was like, well, damn it. So during that, and this is where Matthew comes in, I called you.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, skills before pills. Well, I already took the pill, so let's go back to the skills. So I called Matthew. And what was it like on the other line of someone having an anxiety attack?
It's never a fun moment. Because you have no idea what's going on. All I could hear was crying, sobbing, and yelling.
And the police were called because we had to pull over into a parking lot so I could get through my panic attack. And the shout out to McKinney Police, guys. Like, shout out. Y'all
Thank
were
y'all.
The best. So that.
Thanks for your service.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, the 2 police officers that helped us. Thank you so much. So, NBCDFW says that police officers are often on the front lines when it comes to dealing with mental health in the community.
And they very much are. They see it all.
Crazy shit.
Yeah,
First responders see it all.
they really do. And if you have any first responder stories dealing with mental health, please email us, wearenoalamo@gmail.com. Love to hear them because...
You know who else is crazy with like being affected
Tell
by
me.
it?
Think I'm gonna hang you.
Stringers.
What's that?
So I did stringing
Learning.
for a while in Austin, and what it is basically
Like at a Guitar Center?
no.
I have no idea what this is.
I wish. What
I'm
it
so
is
not cool.
actually, you go with your camera equipment and follow 911 calls to events that
Yeah.
occur, and you sell your footage to the news.
Yep.
And I did this for about 4 months.
Wow.
And I saw the most disturbing stuff I've ever seen in my life. But here's the kicker. Why I say these people are probably affected is because news stations are ruthless.
Yes.
And they are like just bloodhounds. And I remember particular, there was an incident that occurred on 35 where a lady had gotten into a car accident, flew out of her windshield. I recorded it. I got there because I heard it on the radio.
I
Got
went
there,
therapy after
recorded
that.
it. Okay. And got the footage. Contacted a local news station, which I'm not going to name, but I should name them because they're pieces of shit.
News.
And
News.
I told them what I had, sent them over the footage. They told me it wasn't bloody enough.
Oh my god!
Not surprised.
So I sat there, had to witness this woman who literally had gone through this traumatic event,
And
was
it's
on the
not
floor
good,
bleeding,
man.
and I tried to give her as much privacy as possible, giving the news the footage, and it wasn't enough for them. They
What
cut
do they
my
say? If it
pay.
bleeds, it leads or something?
They paid me for it, but they gave me like almost to nothing for what I put in.
They wouldn't even
No.
pay for a therapy session that you needed,
And I couldn't
probably.
believe it. So and then in my mind, I was like, I wonder what these guys that work for the news, what they go through. Because I'm just a contractor. I'm shooting as a stringer. These
Yeah.
guys probably are just like, oh my god, I'm getting paid by the hour right now, and I gotta get in there.
Nope.
And I gotta see the most. You know what I mean?
Things. Well, I mean, not to get too graphic, but we were discussing the other day, there was like an accident in Los Angeles or somewhere in California like a long time ago where this guy got in a car accident and literally the top torso from the car landed on another car underneath it. And all I could think about the whole time was like, oh my gosh, that person's poor life forever. You know? So this is one reason. Another reason why McKinney's Police Cheese, shout out Greg Conley.
You mean chief?
Cheese.
Police Cheese. Police
The head cheese? The head
That
cheese?
cheese.
Yeah, I like that. There we go.
Greg Connolly. He's requiring every officer in McKinney to undergo crisis intervention training through a week-long program at
Why did it take this long?
college.
I mean, think about it.
You
Since
know what?
yeah, I mean, the stats you just brought up earlier. So we've had a 30% increase in suicides. So
Since 2000.
since 2000, what happened in 2001? We went to war. So and a big part of that's probably going to be soldiers coming back. I mean the rates with PTSD, the rates for suicide. I mean I don't know all the statistics, but it's something ridiculous with soldiers with PTSD committing suicide. So I can definitely see the correlation. Not saying causation, correlation. Anyway,
It's a smart podcast.
And I hate to break it for all you Austinites out there, but
Yeah.
about half of those guys that you're denying giving them $1 or $1 or $2 are actually veterans.
Yep.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm voting for Beto O'Rourke.
You know, yeah, it's totally. Austin has a big problem with the homeless community.
The worst I've ever seen.
Don't realize that actually a lot of these guys are vets that are just they're just AWOL and they need help.
Yeah, and also go back to previous podcasts on SoundCloud, YouTube, not YouTube yet, iTunes. It's called Mental Health and Homelessness, where I interview my good friend Spencer DuPont, who is homeless, who does have MI, and has diabetes type 1, so sometimes he can't afford his insulin. He goes through a hard time mentally, and he goes to the hospital. That is his life perpetuating. And if we offer these courses at the very beginning, like with police officers or in schools, do you think that it would help people in the future, like help meet the needs of those less fortunate?
I don't know. I just think I think depression is a spider web when it comes to different individuals and how it affects them. I think you have all different kinds. You have PTSD. You have. I saw the other day doing stringing again. I got to a scene and I saw at Round Rock Elementary they locked down the whole school because some kid said he had a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Elementary school.
Yep.
Not high school, not middle school, elementary school. I was watching fucking Blue's Clues in elementary school. Like, these kids are talking about they have guns and they want to hurt people because they're being affected. Like, it's a really big issue that nobody wants to call out 100%. But
So do you think...
So at my at my nephew's school this year, there was a school shooting at their school. I went to visit them.
Sorry to hear that.
I mean, unfortunately, in this country, it happens every day. Yeah, no other first world country in the world has the problem that we have. So there's so much more systemic issues here. But like I remember being there with my brother-in-law because I woke up. It was whatever holidays in the end of May. So it was the end of the school year for the kids, and that happened. I showed up. I drove 18 hours to go visit my cousins, or my sister and my brother-in-law. I wake up in the morning, and all of our phones are blowing up because there was a kind of like today, your phone blew up saying, hey, this was going on here. Something happened. They wouldn't give the parents any information. So my sister and brother-in-law were going crazy. But yeah, like the fact that kids are bringing guns to school and things are going on, there's an issue. And if we don't address it as a society, there's something wrong.
And we're being reactive to situations.
Yeah.
So do you think that this mental health curriculum and proposal for both schools and police officers could, be an answer besides being reactive or being proactive?
Well, here's the thing, right? People are weird sometimes. And where I'm going with that,
Thank you.
Where I'm going with that is this. So say you make mental health something that the government comes in and says we're gonna offer these people the most we can. We're gonna give them everything right away to make sure they don't end up in this hole or this downward spiral. Okay, right? So they incentivize it. They give them funds. They send them to certain locations that would usually cost a lot of money. They give them medication, all comped, all free, whatever, paid for. But then what do you get?
Is this New Amsterdam on ABC?
But then what do you get?
Exactly.
Then you get people lying. Then you get people trying to be like with the system, be like, hey, I have depression when they really don't. So it's like it's weird. It's like how do you sift out the people that are hurting a lot and the people that are just like, hey, I can just say this.
But to counteract that point, I mean, people say the same thing about welfare and Social Security, or welfare specifically, or like that. Most every study, and that's the main argument that most people have about, offering services to people who are in a worse predicament than themselves. Studies all show that less than 1% of them want to be in that predicament. Like, it's like the fraud, waste, and abuse doesn't exist in the way that we're talking about. And so I understand that thought, but I think it's much more, would you rather as a person or as a society say we helped the people who we thought we needed to help, or we turned some of the way that actually needed help because we thought they might be lying?
So you're saying the benefits outweigh the risks?
Yes.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the amount of money that the government has and what they can put in, I think that if they take a hit with people that are whatever.
Yep. It's not going to affect
the system. I'm just saying to you that this is not my thought process, but this might be the thought process of a lot of people people that would sign a bill like that.
Absolutely.
Or go ahead and be like, okay, something like that.
Absolutely.
So I mean, they don't think like me and you, where
No.
it's like the benefits outweigh the risk.
Yep.
Because $100 that's wasted here is you changed all these people's
Yep.
lives. So to
And
speak.
it's like during Hurricane Harvey, my sister, she worked at the only Walgreens that was open. And she was in a fucking Walgreens commercial because of her volunteer efforts at the convention center to get medication to people in need who no longer had their prescriptions.
Yep.
The issue she ran into were people who were lying about what medicines they were on so that they could get access to, you know, opiates.
Well, junkies are junkies. No offense to
so
a
she
junkie.
had
I'm not
to
making
go-
fun of you. I'm just saying, like, if you have an addiction, you have an addiction.
And you see a way in and you go there. But she had to go through that situation of, like, finding the people who were really in need of help and sifting through
You know when I say
the
that?
white noise.
You know when I say that? I say who's worse.
There you
I say
go.
the junkie
Or the one who
or the
provides.
FDA. Charging somebody hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get there.
Well, let's say this. That's not the FDA who's charging them. That's called for-profit healthcare.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's not the FDA. FDA approves the drug,
Bingo.
but what actually is charging the drug is like with the EpiPen, right? It was like $100, $50 a pop. The other company bought it, started charging a G. That is highway robbery. But in this country, when you have healthcare systems, especially in this country, like healthcare corporations control this fucking country. Pardon my language, but the same drug that you buy here
Testicles.
the same drug you buy here for $100 a pill, get in Canada, Mexico, Germany, Switzerland, France for $2, $3, $4.
And people do that. They cross national lines.
But the reason why in this country we have such an issue with it is because it is a for-profit business when every other first world country is not the same. So to measuring us up to the rest of the first world is not fair. We should be measured up to the third world when it comes to
I
healthcare.
agree with you, and I think that you're 100% right. Well, how I counteract that, subtly counteract that, is by saying, how do you handle a situation like Canada, where healthcare is free, but you have to wait 2 days to see a doctor?
But you don't. That's a fallacy. That's a fallacy too. They've done multiple reports on that, and that's actually
like
not true.
recruiters are bad?
Yeah.
Wait.
Is a fallacy?
No, they have.
I know, wait.
No. So like my friends who I played hockey growing up, so I played a lot of Canucks, or sorry, derogatory term, lots of Canadians.
We're going to sip on this.
Yeah, I apologize for that statement to all my Canadian friends. I love you, our friendly neighbors to the north.
I have Canadian friends. I'm not Canadian racist.
Yes, I might be. They beat me up playing hockey. But anyway, my buddy tore his ACL, really bad playing hockey. And he did have to wait to have that surgery, but it wasn't necessary for him to have that surgery to still have his quality of life. What did matter was the 80-year-old woman who did need that surgery because she wouldn't be able to move around. So she came first. That was the good. And so he was okay with that. He never complained that he had to wait a few months because he was a kid and did something dumb while playing a sport. There was a huge difference. And in Canada, there is private healthcare people that you can go to that you can
pay for.
You have to pay for. But within that single payer realm, everyone was covered equally. And yes, if I went to the ER because I fell and broke my hip, I would get whatever I needed at that time. If, let's say, I broke my nose and I wanted some cosmetic surgery, I might have to wait for that. Yeah. But what was necessary was provided instantaneously. So that's what I think of most Americans when they jump on this. You have to wait. You really don't.
Because what were we talking about yesterday? You might be interested in this. Like, Texas has the highest percentage of
infant mortality. Has the highest infant mortality rate in the United States of America and is equal to that of most all the third world countries.
So would you have to wait to get that?
From what? From SIDS?
Yeah.
No.
From
Infant mortality, like
women.
during pregnancy, women dying and kids dying during pregnancy.
Okay, yeah, I heard about that.
So Texas is the worst, and we call them that we have the best healthcare system in the world. We don't. So
to all of our listeners in Texas, which is like most of them, Texas is not the worst.
I love Texas, but at the same time, I'm gonna call it on what it is.
We need to get some better policies in there. Slip it in. Hopefully.
Well,
Bono
Texas
won't be
also
like
does have
that.
the highest amount of uninsured people in the country as well, which also leads to that. If you don't have insurance, you're not going to see a doctor for prenatal care. One of my best friends is an OBGYN, and she worked in Chicago for a long time. And one of her biggest complaints and the things that was that the fact that you had people who never saw a doctor the entirety of their pregnancy till they had the kid. Then they're in the ER. And then she was delivering their baby. no one knows what's going to happen in that situation. And that's what causes the issues. It's not so much that,
So bringing it back to mental health, like, what?
same reason why we have so much mental health issue in this country.
Okay.
We don't talk about it. We don't provide for it. Most insurance won't pay for it.
See, the thing is that I get what you're saying, and I guess maybe it's just for example's sake. So, like, my wife is from Montreal, right? Mm-hmm. So she grew up there.
Friendly, yay!
Oh my gosh, why didn't you bring that up?
So I've seen
First time I brought my nose was in Montreal.
Firsthand the health administration, how the healthcare system works in Canada. It is free, but from what I've seen, I'm going to use this as an example right now, and please forgive me for saying this, but like her grandmother has cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she has leukemia. She went to the doctor. Okay, they found a mass in her lung.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she's had cancer before. She had stomach cancer.
Oh man.
She beat
Sorry.
it. Okay.
Congrats.
So she has leukemia now. She went to the doctor. Doctor found the lump. They told her to come back in 8 weeks to get an MRI. Why? Because they just didn't have the space to give her. So what I'm saying to you right now is that I get what you're saying about your buddy who tore his ACL, and I get what you're saying about the person that risk comes before whatever you bring to the table here. But I think it's not Canada's fault. I think that free healthcare system would work. The only issue is doctors and nurses and the medical field trying to filter out who really needs help right now in this very instant and who doesn't. Because if you have free healthcare, you're rushing to the doctor for every little reason.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's tough in that.
It's like I was talking about, like, the tools that you give kids to talk about mental health. Like,
It's no one's fault.
No.
But the competitive thing, what our politicians and what our government is pushing now to create this competitive field for healthcare.
There's no such thing.
It's just bogus because it's not going to help anybody but them.
Well, no, it won't line anyone's pockets, but the healthcare companies, or not even the healthcare companies, they're actually the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, and my big stick here, like with that situation, there's a lot of factors at play, and I am not the person to be the judge. But I will say that, you go to a hospital in the States, you're going to pay 10 times more than any other country in the world, especially for just getting an Advil at the doctor's office. I mean,
can we boil this down to the good old cat phrase, you get what you pay for?
No.
Because I mean, like, honestly, right now, what you're saying, so like, I go to a doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a really big problem.
Yep.
I'm going to pay out of the ass because I don't have insurance, right?
Yep.
But I'm going to get what I need to get.
No, not always. Because still in this country, because you're going to have to pay out if you can afford that. If you have the luxury of being able to afford it, that's one thing. But say you go to the emergency room, they give you 2 days of antibiotics. That's what they'll give you, something like that. A very short amount, or painkillers for a day. You have to go to the pharmacy. They're not just going to give you something without paying. So you're still up a creek without paddle.
Yeah, you get put in debt for sure. What I mean,
but not even the debt. You can't even get the medical attention you need without the actual money here.
$300
Yeah.
So when my depression, I suffer from hypochondria.
Mm-hmm.
When I used to suffer from hypochondria. That hypochondria to doctors is like their best friend. Why do I say that? Because in New York, there was a stint in my life where I went like 2 months where I was convinced I had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my hypochondria. I went and got all these tests done. I literally got put thousands of dollars in.
Yep.
The doctors did it. They were like, hey, we're just going to bill you.
Yep.
We're going to give you, we're just going to bill you.
Yep.
And it's like, they do it with
like,
smile on
wait,
their
team
face.
time out. Like, you're not caring about me as the patient. You're caring about...
Well, that's not. It's not even so much that simple here in the States.
That's all I'm hearing.
No, it is. No, it is. But there's also more laws and regulations around this. So, like, that's the funny part, is because of the way insurance bills. If you do certain things, you have to do certain tests to bill. So, tests that aren't necessary, we have to do to bill.
That's why they always do biopsies.
Yep.
All the time. They get anything done, they always do.
So
endoscopy, they do a biopsy.
Yep.
Why? They didn't see anything. They do it because they want to add more to the bill.
Well, that, or they have to do that to clarify why they did it in the first place to get the insurance company to pay for it. So we have the most inefficient healthcare system in the first world.
Real quick, to bring it back around to Juana. So one thing
Sorry.
that I really want that...
Everybody. No, I'm putting it, 'cause I'm sorry that I drove it off
You
topic.
better put something in that jar
Put some in that jar. You have no reason...
I have no money to give, so...
I gave you some.
I was stealing money from the...
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Because I knew you would apologize apologize. I'm like,
I'm
gotta
going
do
to.
it. It's a Pavlovian thing. You got to think about your
that's
words.
funny.
They mean
Great.
things.
I love this.
Marron.
I love this show. But yeah, a part of WANA, like, what full transparency, what I'm working on right now is like building up the board member bylaws and like expectations of everyone who wants to be on the board. One of those things is program development for WANA, which might be something similar to AA, where you can come in somewhere in a safe place and talk about things. Where
Absolutely.
It's a skills-based resource for people instead of having to worry about all the politics and insurance of everything. Because honestly, sometimes it's just about opening up. And been talking a while, so let's wrap it up. So mastering and self-soothe. Remember what mastering and self-soothe are? What are you going to do in the next 24 hours that you think you're going to master? And then for self-soothe, what are you going to do in
Sleep.
the next 24 hours that's going to make you feel better?
And Spider-Man for PS4.
Oh, there you go.
Wait, is that master or self-soothe?
Mastering.
I think that's both because I totally
I'm gonna
dig it.
trophy that son. I'm
Yes.
gonna platinum that son of a bitch.
How about winning an H1Z1 like solo match? There we
Oh
go.
my gosh.
That'd be my mastery. But that's never
Have
gonna
y'all
happen.
noticed their shirts? For people listening, Donnie over here got a Millennium Falcon Star Wars shirt on.
Yeah.
And Matthew has a robot.
Yep.
Matthew is a robot.
Period. Nerd alert.
Just a robot. Just a robot.
Video games are appropriate masteries for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I
You're gonna
did.
platinum Spider-Man too.
How did you know?
I knew it. I know you got a PS4 upstairs.
She lies. She lies. She loves my PS4.
I
People
love
are gonna love this video and be like, "Oh my god, he's playing Spider-Man. That's awesome." I'm
Yeah,
playing Spider-Man."
exactly. Spider-Man.
Hey man, I'm one of the guys pushing that video games are a form of self-soothing and can help people.
I totally
with
agree.
anxiety.
Alright, for my self-soothe, I'm just going to put more sunscreen on so it keeps smelling like summer. And talk to my mom.
I might get to start running again next week.
Ooh, self-soothe running. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because you bruised your ribs, didn't you?
Yeah, I broke a rib.
Owie. Well, good job. All right. Guys, thank you so much for another fabulous podcast. Remember, you're not alone because...
We are no Alamo.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. See ya. Bye.
Later.
Cheers.